Okay, so the color wheel is pretty straightforward. You're gonna need your color pencils, and I'm gonna give you this handout. The very first thing you wanna do is write your name right there at the top, because you're gonna have to turn this in or show it to me for a grade. The tricky thing about this here in the beginning is that in order to complete this color wheel, you can only use the 3 primary colors, which are red, blue, and yellow. Okay, and to complete this, we'll use black and white, and then for this, you need all of these colors that it says right here. For the complementary color, you're gonna put colors that are opposite on the color wheel, and I'll show you how to do that in just a moment. So remember that you can only use the 3 primaries: yellow, let me see, blue, and red. And we'll pull out black and white for the neutral colors. Now, much like when you're shading, the amount of pressure that you add here is important. The pressure is going to determine the opacity, or how transparent a color looks. So when you're mixing a gray, you don't want to use too much pressure. It's better to start light, and if you need to increase the pressure, well, you can increase it later. So I'm going to begin by hatching and cross hatching. Oh, by the way, if you don't use the 3 primary, it's very easy to tell, because you know, it's noticeable that you didn't hatch or cross hatch. So right here, applying a fair amount of pressure, you want to fill in this little circle. Doesn't matter if you go out of the circle a bit, don't worry about that too much, but you definitely want to make sure that it's nice and opaque and that it looks red. Okay. Over here in the bottom right, we want to, give me 1 second. Over here at the bottom right, we want to do yellow. And over here in the bottom left, we want to do blue. Those are our 3 primary colors. The primary colors when it deals with light are different than the primary colors when it deals with art. So do keep that in mind. And you could apply a fair amount of pressure here. Try to be as neat as you can. Okay. Now over here we're going to develop the secondary color. Which is going to be orange, and that's very easy to mix. Typically I like to use the darker color first. So red is darker than yellow, but I don't think it matters much. And now using yellow, I'm going to go on top of that to make it orange. Over here we want to make green, so actually right now I'm going to use, because blue will overwhelm it, so I'm going to use yellow first. And very lightly, I'm gonna use blue on top to make it green. Now the reason it's gonna be easy for me to tell if you're using 2 colors is because you can see the lines. If it doesn't look a little bit messy, you know, then you probably didn't actually use the colors to blend. And lastly, over here we want to do violet. So again, I'm going to use red first. And then I'm going to use blue on top of that. If you're ever having a hard time telling what's what, you can always blur your vision, and then it becomes really obvious that is clearly violet, this is clearly green. In the center, what you want to do is you want to mix a brown, and the way that you make brown is by mixing complementary colors. Complementary colors are colors that are opposite on the color wheel. So red and green are complementary, orange and blue are complementary, and yellow and purple are complementary. And you'll hear me say this in class, but these colors are often used a lot in advertising, like yellow and purple are the color of the Lakers, blue and orange are the color of the Dolphins. It's not always used, but it is used a lot. So the way that I like to do it is I like to mix an orange first, and then I like to put brown into it, so that's what I'm going to do. That's a bit orange. Now I want to put some blue into it. You may have to hatch and cross hatch a few times. Any little spots that stick out too much, you could quickly go over them. And that'll give you a brown. Again, if you're not sure, just blur your vision and it should appear brown. If it's ever leaning too much, like maybe right now it's leaning too much towards purple, you can add its complementary, which the complementary of purple would be yellow. And that'll push it more towards brown. I had a little typo on this paper. There should actually be a few more circles here, right, for red, orange, and here for yellow, green, and here for yellow, orange. So I might go ahead and add that and come back and continue the video. Let me go see what I can do. Okay, so I corrected that problem, and now we can move forward. So over here, I want to make sure that this is very red, very opaque. So I'm going to go over it again. Felt like it was a bit too light. So over here, we want red, orange. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna apply a lot of pressure with red. And we're gonna apply light pressure with yellow. Is red orange gonna look a lot like red? Yeah, it is. It's supposed to look like. Is it gonna be identical? No, it shouldn't be identical. It should be a little bit different. Now over here we have yellow orange. So we're gonna do the opposite now. We're gonna apply a lot of pressure with yellow. And we're going to apply light pressure with red. That's gonna make a yellow orange. Over here, if you haven't gotten the hang of this yet, this is gonna be yellow green. So the primary color has to be the stronger color. Well, the primary color that's close to here. So over here it was red, over here it was yellow, over here it's yellow, and over here it's gonna be blue. And over here it's gonna be red again. So we're gonna do a lot of pressure with yellow. To make a yellow green. And very light pressure with blue. And that's your yellow green. Over here, heavy pressure. We're trying to do blue green. Heavy pressure with blue. Blue is a darker color than yellow, so which means that you might have to apply more pressure with yellow to get it to look more green. But let's see. So we're gonna do heavy pressure with blue and light pressure with yellow. And no, you don't need to do that any harder. That looks blue-green. Over here again, we want a blue-violet. So we're gonna do heavy pressure with blue, light pressure with red. Light pressure with red to make a blue-violet. And lastly, we want a red-violet over here. So heavy pressure with red and light pressure with blue to create a red-violet. Violet seems to be the most difficult color to mix with colored pencils. Well, at least with these colored pencils. Higher quality colored pencils may mix a bit better. But if you're having any doubt, you could always blur your vision. When you're not blurring your vision, it's a bit difficult to see if the colors are truly distinct. But once you blur your vision, it becomes pretty clear. All right, now we can move on. The neutral colors. Neutral colors consist of white, black, and gray. Typically, I mean, all colors can take on the consistency of becoming neutral. Like you can have a red gray, or you can have a purple gray, or any colored gray. So don't think that it's limited to just these things. The same applies to warmth and coolness. Like there will be unique situations where a cool color might appear warm depending on what's around it, or a warm color may appear cool. So when it comes to color, when it comes to art in general, there isn't really anything that is set in stone. There are always exceptions. And I'm gonna leave that white. And that right there is actually a nice gray already. But just in case, I am gonna use my white to go over it. And that's actually darkening it a bit, but it's still gray. So that's a nice gray. Over here, we're gonna make it black. So not using the black again, but we're going to apply more pressure so it doesn't look gray. We're gonna make this black. A pencil would work for that gray too. So if you don't have color pencils and you're borrowing or whatever, you're borrowing from a friend or your neighbor, you can just go ahead and use gray there. I think you are going to have to find the color pencil for black, because I don't think a pencil will get that dark. Complements. Complements down here are opposites on the color wheel. So if we make, let's see, if we make this blue, the complement of blue is the opposite on the color wheel, so it's orange. So over here we want to mix an orange. All right, now on this end, this is yellow, and the complement of yellow is purple. So we're gonna go ahead and mix that. Yellow. And remember that we make purple by mixing red and blue. Go a little bit out the circle, that's not a big deal. If you go a lot out of the circle, that's still not a big deal. The most important thing here is just to make sure you understand what colors mix to create other colors. So red and blue are for violet, yellow and red for orange, and yellow and blue for green. And then understanding the different amounts of pressure you have to apply to get like a yellow green or a blue violet, etc. There you go. And then lastly, we have green and red, which are complementary. Okay, so I finished mixing all the complementary colors. It was orange, blue, yellow and purple, red and green. Now, just for the sake of communication, we've divided, not we, but I mean, it's kind of understood throughout the world of art that art is in separate families. And two of the families are warm and cool. So if we're ever communicating and I say, well, that needs more warmth, what I mean is that it either needs more yellow, red, or orange, or colors similar to those. Where if I say that needs to be a little bit cooler, then what I mean by that is it needs to be either green, violet, or blue. Now typically when you're painting people or when you're painting living things, there is a lot of warmth. When you're painting inanimate objects like stone or usually shadows tend to be a bit more cool, or people, but deceased people, so people that are no longer living, will turn shades of cool colors, which is green, blue, and violet. So right down here, what I want you to do is I just want you to put those in so I know that you know them. So when you're thinking about something that helps students sometimes is when you're thinking about warm colors, think about literally warmth or fire, and some colors that you might see in fire, and that's pretty easy. So that's yellow, red, like I said before, there's always exceptions, you know. There can be coolness in the face of somebody that's living, and vice versa. So you might see some stone that, for whatever reason, the shadow isn't cool, or the stone itself isn't cool. It's a warm gray, which is like a yellow gray or an orange gray or a red gray. So there's always exceptions, but just for the sake of understanding and communicating and teaching, we try to simplify it a bit. So you walk into it, you know, kind of knowing the basics. And then over here on the cool side, we have blue. All of these contain blue. It's blue, green, and violet. So I could just make it all blue and then change the others. So we have blue, green, and violet. And those are your cool colors. Now over here, what I'm gonna do, or what I want you to do, what I'm gonna do last is I want you to do a small value scale with these colors. So and we already know how to do a value scale. So the very first one, I'm gonna shade very lightly. And this is because sometimes you might have to do this. Not sometimes, but pretty much all the time. Over here, you use medium pressure. And then for the last one, use a lot of pressure, make it very opaque and solid. So it creates kind of 3 different shades. And what you want to do is you just want to do that for all of them. So the very first one, light pressure, that's going to give you some practice for when you have to color the texture things. And when we color our children's books, or anything that you're coloring if you're not doing the children's book this year. And then for the last one, make it very opaque, very solid. Opacity is the opposite of transparency. So when I ask you to make something opaque, that means I don't want any of the white coming through, or I don't want it to be transparent. While this one is very transparent, so a lot of the white is coming through. So it looks maybe a little bit more like a sky blue, like a pink, you know, because pink and white will make, I'm sorry, red and white will make pink. And you just continue. Medium pressure. And heavy pressure. The pink looks the same. I'm sorry, the yellow looks the same. I got pink on the brain. For this one, it will be okay if you want to use the other color pencils. So I won't be looking at that in particular. No sense in making you mix it here. So I'm just gonna use the green color pencil just for this section and lightly go in, put the green. This is really important with the green when it comes to leaves and grass. There's so many different shades of green. I believe green is the color with the most variety. And they say it's the most pleasant to look at. But who knows? And then over here, we're gonna apply a lot of pressure. Violet, let's see, here's my violet. Light pressure. Medium pressure. And heavy pressure. And last is orange. Light pressure. Do medium pressure. And heavy pressure. And that's it. So with the help of this video, you should be able to do this right away. Remember, if you're ever having doubts, just blur your vision and all the colors should stand out. And you're going to use just the primary colors for this. And when it comes to this, you use your other color pencils. The warm and the cool colors is especially useful when you're trying to determine the color of something, but you're not quite sure what it is. So when you look at something and you don't know what color it is, you should blur your vision and determine if it's warm or cool, right? Once you blur your vision and determine, okay, that it's warm, let's say, then you need to ask yourself which color it leans more towards. So if it is warm, is it more yellow? Is it more red? Is it more orange? And you know, come up with your answer. Sometimes it could be both. You can say, well, it's red-orange, or it's yellow-red. Same thing on the other end of the spectrum. If it's cool, if you look at something, you're not sure what color it is, but blur your vision. If it's cool, then ask yourself, is it blue, is it green, or is it violet? And whichever one it leans towards, you know, you go in that direction. And of course, there's many colors here that we haven't mixed. This is just a basic introduction to color. Color is limitless. So this is just a small introduction. All right, guys, I'll see you in class. This is a pretty easy assignment, so I expect everybody to get an A. And I'll see you then.